History is a story. It's a massive, sprawling, epic heroes, villains, incredible moments. We learn it in school, we see it in movies, we think we know the script. But here's the thing. Stories get twisted in the telling, details get exaggerated, facts get fudged. The most famous parts are completely, utterly wrong. Like finding out your favorite superhero's origin was fabricated. Put on safety glasses, roll up our sleeves, do some serious myth-busting, separate fact from fiction. Separate history from hearsay. Think about the images that pop into your head. A Viking with a horned helmet. Napoleon with his hand tucked in his coat. These images are powerful, they're iconic. Burned into our minds by centuries of paintings plays pop culture. What if those snapshots are based on a lie? It's not just small details. These myths change how we view entire groups in pivotal moments. They're shortcuts that lead us down the wrong path. A good story is more entertaining than messy truth. A punchy narrative is easier to remember than nuance. So myths stick, passed down like family heirlooms until they feel real. But they're not. Phantoms of the past, illusions we agreed to believe. Picture a Viking. I bet you're imagining a huge bearded warrior, leaping from a long ship with a battle axe in one hand and a magnificent horned helmet on his head. It's the quintessential image of a Norse raider, seen in everything from cartoons to football team mascots. For centuries, this has been the go-to look for anyone wanting to portray these Scandinavian seafarers. The horns are supposed to signify their ferocity, their almost demonic presence as they terrorize the coasts of Europe. It's a powerful, intimidating look. The only problem? It's completely and utterly bogus. There is zero evidence that Vikings ever wore horned helmets into battle. So where did this myth come from? We can thank the 19th century, and specifically, an opera. In the 1870s, Richard Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen featured costume designs by Karl Emil Doppler that put horned helmets on his Norse and Germanic heroes. The look was dramatic, it was theatrical, and it caught on like wildfire. Artists and illustrators started depicting Vikings this way, and the image just stuck. It was a costume designer's fantasy, not a historian's reality. The idea was so visually striking that it completely overwrote the actual, less exciting truth about what these warriors wore. For the most part, they probably wore simple leather or iron caps. Some might have worn more sophisticated iron helmets, like the Geirmundbu helmet, a rare artifact discovered in Norway. This helmet looks more like a simple skull cap with a protective guard over the eyes and nose. Notice what it doesn't have? Horns. Think about it from a practical standpoint. Horns on a helmet would be a terrible idea in a real fight. They'd get caught on things. They could be grabbed by an enemy to wrench your head around, and they offer no real defensive advantage. Real warriors prized function over fashion. It's a classic case of a myth being busted. Napoleon Bonaparte. The name itself conjures an image of immense power, military genius, and a really short guy. The idea of Napoleon complex, a term for when shorter men act overly aggressive, is named after him. He's the historical poster child for being vertically challenged. We picture him as a tiny tyrant, desperately trying to conquer Europe to make up for his lack of inches. This image is everywhere, from political cartoons of his era to modern-day jokes. His small stature has become as much a part of his legend as the Battle of Waterloo. But was he actually that short? The answer is a resounding no. The myth of Napoleon's tiny stature is a brilliant piece of wartime propaganda, cooked up by his bitter enemies, the British. During his life, Napoleon was measured at about 5 feet 7 inches tall. For his time, in the early 19th century, this was actually slightly above average for a Frenchman. The average height for men in France back then was closer to 5 feet 5 inches. So the great military commander wasn't just not short, he was taller than many of his countrymen. The little corporal was a giant of his time, both figuratively and, to a lesser extent, literally. So how did the British propaganda machine pull this off so successfully? It was a combination of clever caricature and a little bit of confusion over measurement systems. British cartoonists, like the famous James Gillray, relentlessly depicted Napoleon as a comically small and petulant child, often dwarfed by British leaders. They nicknamed him Little Boney, and the image stuck. The myth was busted. It's one of the most repeated amazing facts out there. The Great Wall of China is so immense, so colossal, that it is the only man-made object visible from space with the naked eye. We've all heard it. Trivia games, textbooks, travel brochures. It's meant to convey the sheer scale and mind-boggling achievement of its construction. The idea that you could float in orbit, look down at the Earth, and pick out this single ancient structure is awe-inspiring. It elevates the wall from a historical monument to a planetary landmark. It's a beautiful, poetic idea, and like so many poetic ideas, it's completely false. Let's talk to some people who would know. Astronauts. Time and time again, astronauts who have been to space have confirmed that you cannot see the Great Wall with the naked eye from orbit. Apollo 12 astronaut Alan Bean described it best. He said that from space, everything looks very natural, and man-made objects are hard to see. He compared trying to see the Great Wall from orbit to trying to see a human hair from 2 miles away. The wall, while incredibly long, is only about 20 to 30 feet wide at its widest points. From hundreds of miles up, it simply blends into the surrounding landscape. Its color and texture are too similar to the ground around it. The myth seems to have originated long before the space age. It can be traced back to an English antiquarian named William Stukeley, who wrote in 1754 that Hadrian's Wall in England was so significant it must be visible from the moon. This idea was later transferred to the even grander Great Wall of China. The notion gained serious traction in the 1930s, particularly after being featured in the popular Ripley's Believe It or Not cartoons. Once the space race began, the myth became cemented in the public consciousness as a definitive fact, even though the people actually going to space were saying otherwise. Its greatness is right here on the ground, not seen from the stars. Of all the callous quotes in history, this one takes the cake. The story goes that when Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, was told that her starving subjects had no bread, she flippantly replied, "Que mangeons de la brioche?" Let them eat cake. This single phrase has come to define her. It paints her as the ultimate symbol of an out-of-touch, heartless aristocrat, completely indifferent to the suffering of her people. It's the perfect soundbite to explain why the French Revolution happened. It's dramatic. It's infuriating. It makes for a fantastic story. But there is no credible evidence she ever said it. The phrase actually appears in the writings of the philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his book Confessions. He recounts a story about a great princess who said it. Here's the catch. He wrote this part of the book around 1767. At that time, Marie Antoinette was only 11 years old, was still living in Austria, and had not yet married into the French royal family. The phrase was likely a piece of anti-aristocratic folklore that had been floating around for decades, attributed to various princesses long before Marie Antoinette even arrived in France. It was a pre-packaged smear line, just waiting for the right target. So how did it get pinned on her? Marie Antoinette was a perfect scapegoat. As an Austrian-born queen, she was always viewed with suspicion and dislike by many in France. She was known for her lavish spending, opulent lifestyle at Versailles. As revolutionary sentiment grew, pamphlets and propaganda relentlessly attacked her character. Attaching this already famous heartless quote to her was a masterstroke of political mudslinging. It encapsulated everything the revolutionaries wanted people to hate about the monarchy in one simple, memorable phrase. By busting this myth, we don't absolve the French monarchy, but we do get a little closer to the complicated, messy, and far more interesting truth of what actually happened.